And hello, this is Work in Progress. This is Jeff, and I am alone. I'm not alone on purpose. We have Sante, who is our co-host here. She's unavailable. So I'm coming to you today just to speak on some relevant issues. I think it would be interesting for maybe some of you out there to hear from me on. I'm going to be speaking on the Will Smith incident, since everybody is. So many things to talk about, so many issues that this brings up. And you can go a lot of ways with it. One of the things I think is class and levels of class within, especially this Hollywood society. We have issues of violence. We have issues of how people see things. Basically, we live in a world of alternative facts. My opinions, but I just put this out there, these are my opinions. They are in no way that of anyone here at Samstöðin or anyone else affiliated. This is just my commentary. That being said, I found it interesting that a lot of people were split on this live event of someone getting assaulted, because that's basically what it is, someone getting assaulted. Now, as an African-American man, I can tell you this, that image and how we perceive ourselves is always in the forefront of our minds as we negotiate in the world, because of historic demonization or characterization of the African-American male. And so someone like a Will Smith, who has tailored his image around being the nice guy, literally, even in his raps, wasn't profane, it was all good times type stuff. It was pretty shocking to see him go to this level. But at the same time, I wonder why, in a way, was that shocking? And it's because I think we, in society, we expect a lot from people who are in the spotlight. Me, personally, I don't, because people are people, and no matter what they are, we sometimes project our own insecurities or our own wishes or shortcomings outward onto the world, when we really need to be, in my opinion, more self-reflective. I knew as soon as this happened, and I saw it on the internet, I knew it was going to break down into a number of things. First, there was going to be a racial angle for some. Second was going to be a man-woman thing, because, the whole premise was he was standing up for his wife, who was insulted. So there was that angle that I knew was going to come, and some other things. But it basically broke down, for the most part, what I heard was those two angles. So from the male-female part of it, as a man, yeah, you're supposed to defend the person you're with, the woman you're with. It's kind of been how the messages that I received when I grew up. I think most men have gotten that message. How you do that, well, that's another story. We, in our society, we are educated by our media. We're educated by the things that are shown to us. Our kids pick up on these things. Media-wise, when I grew up, it was, physical. Everything was physical. If you disrespected, you respond physically. Otherwise, you're a punk. Those kind of things also come to mind. You're gonna sit there and let so-and-so do that to your girl or to your woman or whatever. We got to be real. We got to be real. Those messages are out there. When these incidents happen, there always tends to be, in my opinion, a forgetfulness of history, a forgetfulness of what we already know, and also a jump to judgment everybody loves to jump on somebody who messes up. Everybody loves that because it takes the focus off of us. So, you know, I try to, when I think about these things or comment on these things or talk about these things, I always try to dash that with a little humility to understand that I've been out of line at times. I've been like really mad to where people had to calm me down. I think we all have. It depends on what the situation is. It depends on what has happened. That being said, if you take a look at the incident, like Chris Rock says a joke about Will Smith's wife. And it's been said that Chris didn't know about her condition. And so he made a joke in ignorance. And, you know, sometimes people say, you know, why did you take it like that? Or you took it the wrong way. And part of me, sometimes I think that's BS to say that to someone, because sometimes you know exactly where someone's coming from, but sometimes you don't. And I think we should give credit on that aspect. Like sometimes we don't know. And we should act on that, not assume immediately that we do know. And that's where I think Will Smith kind of took it. Like you know what you were doing. You knew she had this issue, and he responded in kind. That was his mistake. And, you know, I feel bad for both of them in a way. But that goes to show about jumping to conclusions or jumping to thinking you know automatically where someone's coming from. You know, in my life, I've had to temper that. There was a moment, an incident I remember where I got upset with someone because, you know, I'm trying to remember it now. It was some kind of misunderstanding where a person gave me a look or something. It was a white guy or something, and I thought it was a racial thing. It was just the way, because I was one of the only black people in the room, and I was getting hot, and I was ready to go talk to the guy, like, you know, do you have a problem, kind of thing. But a friend of mine had talked to me and then told me a little bit about the guy, and he was going through some stuff with his girlfriend or something, and it had nothing to do with me. But the look, he looked at me, gave me a look, and I just like, wow, what is that all about? And you know, people, that happens to people. What I'm trying to say is that we all kind of can get into that easily, and we should acknowledge that, you know. And sometimes we may, you know, not have someone there to hold us back or to reason us out, and we act out. I think that's a part of being human, because I don't think there's anybody out there that hasn't made a mistake like that, in judgment too sometimes. So, you know, I will give that, but that's not to excuse physically hitting someone. You know, especially if it's just somebody says something verbal. Now, again, as an African-American male, I've been called many names. I've been called some pretty insightful names. And I've always had to. Now, this is interesting. I always had to judge my response by where I was. And if you know, so when this incident happens and I think about that, a couple of things popped up into my head. Like, if I were to get angry, first of all, it plays into a stereotype. Angry black guy. Big angry black guy. Neither of which I see myself as. Which, and that always like makes me laugh when people kind of respond to me that way. Like with a look or with or they get like nervous. You know, in a small, oh, he's getting in the elevator. Like, all that kind of like makes me kind of laugh, because it's not how I see myself. But they may have another experience, and that may be something that they have to deal with. And then how I deal with it, it has always been in my mind. For African-American males, we always, especially in the United States, how we're perceived is evident there are very many news stories about police coming onto a scene, and even recently, there was a video about two teenage kids, one black, one white, in a mall, and they were fighting. And the police show up, and they sit the white kid down, and they immediately jump on and handcuff a 14-year-old black kid. Two cops, two adult cops. And there was an uproar about that. It was so egregious that even the white kid was like, do you want to put me in handcuffs too? We were both fighting. The point is that perception is always front and foremost, and especially African-American males of my generation. So I think for a lot of people of my generation, that's one thing that we kind of responded to, like, really, you did that on international television? That's the way you went out, you know? Because we're always kind of aware of how people are perceiving, what people are thinking, because it could mean whether you get the cops calling on you or something else, or some kind of negative perception that you will have to deal with in some way. It's an unfortunate part of life in society, in a world where, you know, there was the slave trade, and there was a kind of there was kind of the, you know, colonization where Europeanness or whiteness was considered civilized and everything else was savage. So those things still exist today. So there's that discussion going on in a lot of black communities about how Will Smith, what he did and what it makes people of color look like, men of color. And it instantly happened on the news. If you look at Fox News, it was like, you know, he should be in jail. They should have locked him up. This is the violence. One guy, director named Judd Apatow, posted something on Twitter, which is why people, come on, be careful what you post because it's kind of dumb. But he posted, you know, he could have killed Chris Rock. And it's like, all right, he got slapped. You know, it's not cool, but death, I don't think, was imminent. And he had to delete that post, or he ended up deleting it because people were kind of coming at him. And it's like, that's it. That's the perception, you know? And in our world of social media, nobody thinks anymore. Nobody really takes the time to really kind of think or, you know, give a sense of humility. When everything is always outward and there's no looking inward, there's really no solution. And that's where I come with the alternative facts generation. How I perceive it is what's true, not what is true or what is the truth. So that being said, the male-female aspect of it, you know, defending a woman's honor, you know, as much as things change society-wise and our mores or our values, some things that I don't think change all that much. I'm not sure, and this is where I would love to have my co-host here. If someone disrespected, if a woman's with a man or boyfriend, husband, whatever, and someone disrespects, a man disrespects her, would she expect her man to be silent? How would she feel? Protection. I mean, Will Smith said that in his acceptance speech when he got his Oscar. His whole thing was about, I am called to protect these women, and that's kind of been a traditional role. I mean, we can argue it. It just doesn't really make sense to argue it because it's been what's been kind of the normal for as long as I know. I don't know when that's changed. But there are a lot of women who can definitely defend themselves. They don't really need any help. And a lot of black women do it all the time, every day, 24/7. So that's that. But, you know, Tiffany Haddish, she said it was nice seeing a man defend his woman's honor, especially in the black community. You don't see that, in her opinion. You know, that, yeah, you know, I'm just trying, I'm just trying to think, like, for me, I have a lot of female friends. I'm very protective of them. I have been. There have been some instances where I felt I should step in, where I felt it was upon me to, as the male, dealing with another male being disrespectful, step in. Violence, to me, is like the last resort. But it's on the table. I don't know if you can call it whatever you want, macho, whatever. There is a thing, and I do believe there's a thing such as toxic masculinity, but there's also masculinity. Discuss. And I think it should be discussed, there are a lot of things that have changed in the world, but again, some things haven't, and some things I still think haven't been discussed. So this incident kind of brings up a lot of that, and you see a lot of people are split. I think most people agree that assault is wrong. I think that it shouldn't have happened. I think Will Smith should have had some consequences immediately. It's been reported that he was asked to leave and he refused. I don't know if that's confirmed or not. I've heard it a couple of times on news reports on Entertainment Tonight. But I think that goes to another thing, aside from the male-female dynamic or black dynamic, there goes to the status dynamic, your status in society. Will Smith makes a hell of a lot of money for Hollywood. What are they going to do to him? When it comes to money, as we know, and if you don't know, wake up, the rules change. All bets are off. Nothing is definite. Nothing is definite. Your level in society, if you make a lot of money, you're seen as smart and this, that, and the other thing. You're attributed a lot of things that might not necessarily be true, but that's the way our society works. So Will Smith makes a lot of money for Hollywood. What were they going to do? But should they have given him a standing ovation, right after that? Like, what are you doing? Jim Carrey commented on that, and he said he was disgusted with the way, Hollywood treated the incident. And I kind of agree with him. It's like, a lot of stuff is said out of one side of your mouth, and then you kind of dismiss out of the other, I don't know. I mean, there have been consequences for bad behavior in Hollywood. A lot of the Me Too with Harvey Weinstein and Bill Cosby and stuff like this. We all abhor violence, and most people, I don't think, condone violence. I know some people think, well, you write a check with your mouth that you couldn't cash or whatever, however the saying goes, you may stand to get hit. And I do agree. Sometimes you can say whatever you want, but you can't expect people to respond the way you think they should respond. People are different. People have different backgrounds, different experiences. One thing that's innocent to one person is something totally different to someone else. The way we think and see things differs from person to person. We should allow for that. There shouldn't be a stereotype for that. I think my other thing, circling back on the black thing, is that they're both human. Will Smith and Chris Rock are both human beings. They're men. Him acting out in violence does not mean anything about males or black people. It's to be human. That's what it is. So let's go from there and talk about it. But if we start attributing traits, oh, well, this is toxic, and this is, it's human. People mess up. It's human. That's where I come. I'm not trying to jump on somebody that, I can't look back at myself and say, oh, I've been perfect. And that's the kind of people that annoy me the most, is the ones who are so, high and mighty. And it's like, look, it's the old biblical saying, before you remove the speck out of someone else's eye, you might want to take the log out of your own. And I think that helps so we don't become too high and mighty in our judgments. My opinion on that. So it's always these cultural touchstones that kind of set off where we actually are today in our world. And it's a crazy place, man. It's a crazy place. I mean, I sometimes feel like we went back 20 years. Like, there's so much weird stuff going on. People are just, have their own opinions, which is fine, but now you have the internet, so it makes your opinion with 10 other people, now you feel justified in saying we shouldn't say the word gay in school. We shouldn't teach about history because it might make somebody feel bad. These things are, like, to me, an insanity that's come through in this cultural touchstone, these moments. We are split and fractured society. And the only thing I think can get us back to a normal is we all have to agree on what are the facts. What are the facts? If we look at this Will Smith incident, the facts is that somebody was assaulted, period. As a society, do we reward that behavior? I would hope not. I would hope not. But he sat right back down, boom. But that tells us something. It should inform us about what we value. It should inform us about why was that okay. He makes a lot of money. And money trumps a lot of things, unfortunately. I mean, Harvey Weinstein was going around being abusive to Hollywood actresses for the longest of the time. And the only reason is because he made a lot of money. And he made some of the biggest films. And people in that audience in Hollywood during that, a lot of them were buddy complimenting him. Nobody talks about that. Nobody says much about that because it's embarrassing. But again, should we expect this Jesus-like character from people in the spotlight or from anyone? Personally, I don't think so, unless we expect it from ourselves and we act accordingly. It doesn't mean excusing bad behavior, but it does mean coming at it with a little more humility and a little more compassion for what has gone on. I think Will Smith should be censured by the Academy. I don't think they should have him back. I think they probably should take away his award. He doesn't deserve it. The whole award it's in artistic excellence, but it's like if Hitler was a great painter, I mean, do we take away his art? It's like the whole thing is tarnished. The whole thing is tarnished. Like Bill Cosby. I loved Bill Cosby growing up. As a young black kid, cartoons and everything else. I loved all that stuff. Now, it's all tarnished. It's all been crapped on, Can you separate the person from their art? That's another question. People question Michael Jackson and the documentaries that came out about him. Does that ruin his music for people? Well, for some people, yeah. I guess it does. And I'm not going to judge anyone for that. Who among us is a rightful judge? Ask that question. But the problem we come into is that instead of giving somebody the right to feel the way they feel, we condemn them or say that they're wrong. Now, if your feeling is that all women should be in the kitchen and I can't stand seeing them working, well, okay, now we have an issue because now, it's kind of against you're trying to limit someone else or your thoughts are not in line with what I think the majority of people value or or the freedom we speak on in free societies. But yeah, every time something like this comes up, it always like blows my mind. Just the responses to people and how I feel a lot of times the message is lost. The message for me was simply power and prestige and status in this world is tied a lot to how much money you make. And people give you a lot of deference to what you do depending on who you are and how much money you make. It's why in a lot of countries, we have immigrants. Nobody really listens to them or gives a crap what happens to them. They don't have the status. And then people who do have the status, we let them slide a lot. This is what happens in society. You don't have to take my word for it. It's just, we see it and we know it. We see it and we know it. But is that the way forward? When these incidents come out, I think it throws a question in all of our faces like, well, is this what you want? Is this how you want it to be? Be careful what you answer. Because if you say yes, well, you might be on the receiving end of that smack. And nobody asked really much about how Chris Rock felt. That also struck me very interesting, curious. He was embarrassed on national and international television. Embarrassed. He really restrained himself, more so than I think many people would be able to do, getting hit. But nobody asked. You looked at the internet. It's Will Smith. There's nothing about Chris Rock, took a hit and hasn't said a word and refused to press charges. That takes a hell of a lot of grace. And I think we should be talking about that a little bit too. It's kind of remarkable, really. It's hard to do. The right things to do in life are usually the hard things to do. And the easiest thing is to lash out or, just come out and be disrespectful or, and I hope that's not what the majority wants. And I don't think it is. So that's kind of what I wanted to say about that. It is unfortunate that I'm here, but it's my commentary. Our next show, I'm sure my co-host will have maybe something to say about it. She didn't really want to speak too much on it, but I thought it was such a, it's been such a talked about moment that some people who may not have caught up with it or heard from somebody of my persuasion, what maybe someone like me might think about it. But we're curious, like what other people might think about it. Like, what are your thoughts? I think it's a question for us as a society, what we value and kind of what we allow, I will say that, as an older gentleman, a child of the 70s, really. I was born in 69, but child of the 70s. It wasn't as the hurdles, I don't think, in growing up weren't as crazy as they are now. The questions asked of people and of our younger generation, I think, when I grew up, man, I was just riding my bike, hanging out, playing War in the Woods, doing crazy stunts on my bike and stuff with my friends. That's about, there weren't these questions of Black Lives Matter or transgender kids or any of this. And I grew up with a varied background, many different kinds of people. So I was always used to different opinions and different points of view, and always was open and aware and appreciative of it. So I think about it differently, but there's other people in my generation who have a really hard time. And I see it on these politicians in Washington and the things they're trying to pass, because I think they can't accept change, which is another thing. Change is a part of life. And I think as a society, we're going through some growing pains, and it's change. And some people understand things change. You gotta change. You change with it. You roll with it. You know, your job changes its definition of what they do. You gotta change with it, or you lose your job. Change is a part of life. And the more people embrace change, and not just change for the sake of change, but the understanding that things change. Iceland has changed. I've talked to people, older generations here, because of where I work. I have access to some people who've lived longer on the older side of the generation here in Iceland, Icelandic men and women, and been fortunate to have discussions and talk with a lot of them. Their English is really good. Makes me feel bad that my Icelandic isn't as good, but it gives me a lot of respect. And the change that they've seen, man, I mean, wow. And many that I've talked to are graceful about it, Not very many foreigners during their day. And wow, I mean, talk about a 360, and there's something about that. There's something about accepting that and rolling with it. I think it's part of the DNA of this country, in some ways. I remember during the winter when it was like snowing like crazy, it's been pretty harsh for some people, me included, driving around. And, I remember in the States, I'm like, gee, would people be going to work with this much snow? And it's like they would have canceled school and this, that, and the other thing. But it's, hey, it is what it is. Let's move along. Let's keep it going. That's a pretty great attitude to kind of just accept, all right, that's what it is. The landscape tells you that much. You get out in parts of Iceland, you're like, really? Did someone think this is a good idea to kind of camp out here? But hey, it is what it is, right? Move along with it. Just get into it, do it. There's something to be said about that. It's about embracing what is, and also about change and being grace, having some kind of grace within yourself to adapt. As human beings, I think we are, that's what we are created best to do, is to adapt. If you look at me, just from my melanin level, I should be somewhere warmer, but you adapt. Would like to be somewhere warmer. But we adapt, we change. And again, so back to when we have these cultural moments where everybody has an opinion, I think the big question that we should be asking is, this is where we are, is this where we want to be? Do we accept this? And there's some really good questions now about like men's roles and being the protector and what that means, and is there going too far, and toxic masculinity and these kind of images that we buy into, these images of what's feminine, what's masculine. How does that affect individuals? If you're not a particularly masculine looking dude, but that's the moral or the norm, and you're expected to be that dude when somebody disrespects the woman and the whatever, these questions, I don't have the answers, but they're good questions to start asking, to start looking into. It's where we are, unless this is something that we accept as happening and happening over and over again. My personal belief is that in the great cosmic universe of things, that these things happen for our benefit, for our growth, you know. I loved, you know, science fiction and all that stuff, and one of the things I think about is like aliens. Like, if aliens exist, like, you know, and thinking about time theory and travel, and they're so far ahead of us, you know, and if, say there are aliens and they come and visit, you see UFOs, blah, 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 what are they thinking? Like, in order to advance as a civilization, what did they have to go through? Like, for everybody to just put away all the dumb stuff and work together for common good. Like, put away all the things that we kind of limit each other with. And these false things, these just, they're meaningless things, you know, that we put on each other, these boxes we put everybody into. For what? You know, I think we dumb down a lot of things. I think all society as of now has really dumbed down. People don't think anymore. We've been reduced to clicking a like button or a dislike button, not a thinking button, you know, not a read this first or just give it some time, let it stew. No, we're about instant yes or no. Yes or no. I felt that in Iceland too. It's like if you walk on the street and you smile at somebody, there's an instant calculation, yes or no. And mostly it's no. You just keep going. But every action has a ripple. Every action has a ripple. I remember in my workplace that, you know, in the United States, let me give you this example. You say hello. It's kind of, you grow up that way. It is a courtesy thing. I mean, it's taught to you at a very young age to be respectful. It's being respectful and courteous, courtesy. Opening doors for women, pregnant women, older ladies, whatever. These are cultural things. I don't know if they're cultural because a lot of cultures do the same thing, but it's kind of a societal thing. Well, in my workplace, I kind of got cues that, you know, not everybody wants you to say hello to them. It seems that way. Like it's not something that people kind of enjoy. It's sort of like, it seems like, in my interpretation, it's like you're putting it on them. Like you're pressing someone for something they may not want to do, which is a weird thing. To me, just because of my background, it's weird for me. It's not weird for a lot of people in Iceland, but it's just strange to me. So it's within the culture in which I live. So I kind of took those cues. So I don't. It depends. Depends on if I get a cue. Someone might acknowledge me or smile or something. Then I'll say hello or something. Otherwise, I just totally ignore. Well, we had a meeting where there was a complaint that, gee, the staff in this part of this business is so cold, or there was a complaint like nobody smiles there or whatever. And it wasn't that. The people there, and it's mostly foreigners that I work with, but it wasn't that. That's not what they would normally do. It's just kind of the cues that they've gotten that no one's comfortable with that. So they do it amongst themselves. They, like, if I see another foreign person, they're the ones who will usually say hello or engage with me in some way, in general. I've had plenty of Icelandic people, but it seems to be very selective. It's not a general thing. It's a very selective thing. And it's something that I kind of, you know, the way I grew up, my background, informs the way I see the world and what I think. And I remember when I first got to Iceland, I had to temper that because it's like, well, yeah, that's the way you grew up. That's what you know, but that's not the way someone else did. So immediately, all my interaction from that moment forward had to keep that in mind. And whereas in the States, if you say hello to someone and they say nothing and they make eye contact with you and walk away, that's very kind of rude, disrespectful. In places in the South, that's just racist outright, because it's like, I don't even see you. I don't even see you. And that's where I came from. That's what my experience has been. So I had to temper that. But it's a continual thing. It's a continual thing. So when I think about something like Will Smith, he's not from that much. We're almost the same. I think we're about the same age. He has that within him himself. Of course, he's in the States, though. And, gee, you know, when you get to a certain level of money, you can buy your own reality. And what I mean by that is you're going to have people around you that always tell you you're right, which is, to me, a kind of weak position for a human being to be in. You know, you can't hear somebody say something different. You have to surround yourself with people that tell you you're right. It's the Donald Trump syndrome. You can't have anyone different with a different opinion around you because it makes you weak or something. I don't know. So there's Will Smith. And you live in a nice place and everybody around you has a lot of money. You're not dealing with average people, you know. Your thoughts become different. Well, if they just work harder. You know, anyone who really is successful in business, and there's a lot of books out there, a lot of them tell you it's luck. Luck, being in the right place, having the right connection, knowing this person. You know, there was something I had seen on the internet, a discussion. They were talking about some of the biggest CEOs in the United States, and it was like Bill Gates and Elon Musk and whatever. And they were like, okay, these guys are self-made, all right? Even Jeff Bezos. And then when you look into it, well, Bill Gates' mother happened to know an executive at IBM and talked to the executive about him looking into her son's business or something like this. And he got a job with IBM. I don't know if everybody had that opportunity. Elon Musk, his mother had some kind of connection, I believe. Same thing. You dig a little deeper and you find that sometimes it's about luck. It's about where you are, your station and whatnot. But it colors how you think and see things. And it's not necessarily the case. You have to be open to, in a way, change of opinion, change of point of view. I think it helps because it helps to resolve conflict. It helps to not take things to DEFCON 1. Hate to use that reference considering what's going on in the world. But even the situation that we see in Ukraine, everything always gets dumbed down into this one's right, this one's wrong. Now, that's not to condone war or violence, again. But when we dumb things down, we really do a disservice to our intelligence. We are an intelligent people. We have done great things. We have used our minds to look beyond what is possible or what is there to see what isn't there. And I think that is the goal for us as people. As people, simply as everyone's trying to do their best, and we all mess up trying to do our best. And instead of condemning and jumping on and dismissing, because doing that only delays our own healing. If we are always able to point to someone else as the problem, and we never take any consideration as to what is it that we may contribute. And also, you can have your opinion, but be open to another point of view, you know, and see if maybe it makes sense. It may and may not. But I think for us as human beings in our short time on the planet, nobody lives forever. I think in that time, why not use it to get the most breath out of the experience instead of just, this is the way you live your life. So that's kind of where I want to leave it. Whenever these things come, we see where the lines fall, but let's always try to have a space to be open, to hear others' point of view. And so with that, I want to thank whoever tuned in. And again, these are my opinions. This is just my personal take on what's been going on. Thanks for tuning in, hopefully, and next time have my co-host and she can hit me upside the head. No, violence is wrong, but you understand. Till next time, thank you.